What if I told you that on March 15th, 1952, in a small Norwegian village, ice cubes placed in boiling water remained frozen for exactly 47 minutes? This wasn't a magic trick. This wasn't a hoax. This was the beginning of what scientists would later call the crystalline anomaly. Deep in the archives of the Soviet Academy of Sciences lies a classified document stamped with red ink and buried beneath decades of bureaucratic silence. It speaks of an event so bizarre that even the most skeptical researchers couldn't explain it away. On that fateful day, ice didn't just refuse to melt, it grew. The village of Kjøllefjord, population 342, awoke to an ordinary Arctic morning. Fishermen prepared their nets, children walked to school, and the local baker, Henrik Andersen, started his ovens as he had done for 30 years. But Henrik would be the first to notice something was terribly wrong. As he placed ice into his morning coffee, the cube didn't shrink. Instead, it expanded, crystallizing the hot liquid around it in spiraling patterns that defied every law of thermodynamics. Within minutes, his entire cup had transformed into a sculpture of impossible geometry, warm to the touch yet solid as diamond. The phenomenon spread like a contagion. Every body of water within a 5-mile radius began exhibiting the same properties. The fjord, normally flowing with Arctic currents, developed patches of ice that glowed with an inner luminescence. Witnesses described it as frozen fire, ice that burned cold instead of hot. Dr. Astrid Volkoff, a physicist who happened to be visiting relatives in the area, immediately recognized this wasn't a local weather anomaly. She collected samples, noting that the ice maintained a temperature of exactly 0.0001 degrees Celsius, regardless of external heat sources. When she applied a blowtorch directly to one sample, the flame bent around it, as if the ice was rejecting thermal energy itself. The Soviet government arrived within hours, cordoning off the entire region. American intelligence agencies detected the unusual activity through satellite thermal imaging, a cold spot that shouldn't exist growing larger by the hour. What they found would challenge everything we thought we knew about the physical world. Inside the ice, researchers discovered microscopic structures that resembled neither crystals nor organic matter. They were geometric impossibilities, shapes that existed in more than 3 dimensions, somehow compressed into our reality. One scientist described them as frozen mathematics, equations made solid. The ice samples were transported to laboratories across 3 continents. In Moscow, a team led by Dmitry Kozlov attempted to melt a single gram using industrial furnaces. The ice absorbed 10,000 degrees Celsius without changing state. In fact, it seemed to feed on the heat, growing denser and more complex with each attempt. But here's where the story takes an even stranger turn. On the 7th day of the anomaly, a local Sami elder named Eilahash approached the research camp. He carried with him oral histories passed down through 40 generations, stories that spoke of the time when winter refused to leave. According to these ancient accounts, this had happened before, exactly 800 years prior. The elder described rituals performed by his ancestors, ceremonies that involved singing specific frequencies to the ice. The researchers, desperate for any solution, allowed him to try. What happened next was captured on film, though the footage remains classified to this day. As Eilahash sang in the old language, the ice began to resonate, emitting a low-frequency hum that could be felt in the bones of everyone present. The geometric structures within the ice started to rotate, aligning themselves in patterns that matched ancient Sami symbols carved into nearby rock formations. It was as if the ice was responding to information encoded in sound waves, information that predated modern civilization by millennia. Then, as suddenly as it began, the phenomenon reversed. Over the course of exactly 47 minutes, the same duration as Henrik's coffee cup incident, the ice returned to normal behavior. It melted, flowed, and obeyed the laws of physics once more. But it left behind something extraordinary. In every location where the anomalous ice had formed, researchers found microscopic deposits of an unknown element. It didn't appear on the periodic table. Its atomic structure was stable yet impossible, with electrons orbiting in patterns that suggested quantum entanglement on a macroscopic scale. They designated it Element X47. The Norwegian government officially attributed the event to unusual atmospheric conditions combined with localized magnetic field distortions. The Soviet Union never acknowledged it happened at all. The United States classified all related documents under a security clearance that still exists today. But the people of Kjøllefjord remember. They remember the day winter fought back. In the decades since, there have been whispers of similar events: a frozen lake in Siberia that remained solid through an entire summer, ice formations in the Himalayas that climbed upward instead of melting downward, a glacier in Antarctica that grew 3 meters in a single night during the warmest month on record. Are these isolated incidents or symptoms of something larger? Some researchers believe the 1952 event was a warning, a glimpse of what happens when the boundary between our physical laws and something else grows thin. Others think it was a message encoded in crystalline structures, waiting for us to develop the technology to read it. A few even suggest it was a test, and we failed by trying to destroy what we didn't understand. Dr. Volkov spent the rest of her career studying the samples she collected that day. In her final paper, published posthumously, she wrote, "The ice didn't refuse to melt, it chose not to, and that choice implies consciousness, intention, and intelligence beyond our comprehension."
But this story doesn't end with Dr. Volkov's haunting conclusion. In 2003, a team of climatologists drilling ice cores in Greenland made a discovery that would reignite interest in the Kjøllefjord incident. At a depth corresponding to the year 1152, exactly 800 years before the 1952 event, they found a layer of ice with identical geometric anomalies. The implications were staggering. This wasn't a random occurrence. It was cyclical, predictable, and according to the pattern, it would happen again in 2752. But why every 800 years? What cosmic or terrestrial mechanism could trigger such a precise phenomenon? Dr. James Chen, a theoretical physicist at MIT, proposed a radical hypothesis. He suggested that Earth passes through a region of space every 800 years where the fundamental constants of physics fluctuate slightly. In this region, the electromagnetic force that governs molecular bonds becomes temporarily stronger, allowing water molecules to maintain their crystalline structure even at high temperatures. His theory was met with skepticism until astronomers discovered something remarkable. Every 800 years, our solar system's path through the galaxy aligns with a dense cluster of dark matter. Dark matter, the mysterious substance that makes up 85% of the universe's mass, could theoretically interact with normal matter in ways we're only beginning to understand. Computer simulations showed that during this alignment, dark matter particles could pass through Earth in sufficient quantities to alter local physics. The ice wasn't refusing to melt, it was responding to a different set of rules, rules that only apply when our planet occupies a specific point in spacetime. But this scientific explanation doesn't account for everything. It doesn't explain why the Sami elders' songs affected the ice. It doesn't explain the intelligence that Dr. Volkov detected, and it certainly doesn't explain what happened to Henrik Andersen. Henrik, the baker who first witnessed the phenomenon, began experiencing strange symptoms weeks after the event. He reported dreams of vast crystalline cities existing in dimensions perpendicular to our own. He drew intricate diagrams of structures that mathematicians later confirmed were accurate representations of four-dimensional objects.
Henrik had no formal education beyond primary school, yet he was sketching concepts that would take a PhD in topology to understand. Medical examinations revealed that Henrik's neural pathways had been altered. His brain showed patterns of connectivity that didn't match any known human configuration. It was as if exposure to the anomalous ice had rewired his consciousness, allowing him to perceive reality in ways that shouldn't be possible for a three-dimensional being. Henrik wasn't alone. 17 other residents of Kjøllefjord reported similar experiences. They formed what they called the crystalline circle, meeting weekly to share their visions and compare notes. Their collective accounts described a realm they called the Frozen Archive, a dimension where information is stored in ice crystals, preserved across eons. According to their testimonies, every snowflake that has ever fallen, every glacier that has ever formed, contains encoded data. The Earth's ice isn't just frozen water, it's a planetary memory system, recording everything from geological events to the thoughts of conscious beings. The 1952 anomaly was a moment when this archive became briefly accessible. Indigenous cultures around the world have legends that support this idea. The Inuit speak of ice spirits that remember the old ways. Tibetan monks describe meditation practices that involve reading the frozen wisdom of mountain glaciers. Even ancient Greek philosophers wrote about ice as a medium for storing divine knowledge. Were they all describing the same phenomenon? In 2019, a breakthrough occurred. Researchers at CERN, using quantum computers, managed to decode some of the patterns found in element X47. The data they extracted was astonishing. Mathematical formulas for technologies we haven't invented yet. Star charts showing constellations that won't be visible from Earth for another 1,000 years. And something that looked disturbingly like a countdown. The countdown, if their interpretation is correct, reaches 0 in the year 2752. The next alignment. The next time the ice will refuse to melt. But this time, the data suggests the phenomenon won't be localized to a small Norwegian village. It will be global. Climate scientists have noted with growing concern that Earth's ice is behaving strangely. Glaciers that should be melting are growing. Ice sheets in Antarctica are developing unusual crystalline structures. Arctic sea ice is showing patterns that don't match any climate models. Are these early signs of the coming event? Some researchers believe we're entering a transitional period, a gradual shift towards the conditions that will peak in 2752. If they're right, we have 726 years to prepare for a world where the rules of thermodynamics become negotiable, where ice becomes a conscious medium, and where the boundary between dimensions grows thin enough to cross. Governments have quietly begun preparing. Deep underground facilities are being constructed, designed to function in environments where heat transfer doesn't work normally. Scientists are developing new technologies based on the principles observed in the anomalous ice, attempting to harness its properties before they become uncontrollable. But perhaps preparation is the wrong approach. Perhaps, as the Sami elder demonstrated, the key isn't to fight the phenomenon, but to communicate with it. The songs he sang weren't just random melodies, they were information, encoded in frequency and rhythm, a language that ice understands. Linguists and musicologists have been working to reconstruct these ancient songs, interviewing the few remaining elders who remember them. They've discovered that the melodies contain mathematical ratios that match the geometric structures found in the anomalous ice. It's a language of pure mathematics, expressed through sound, understood by crystalline consciousness. What if the ice isn't refusing to melt? What if it's trying to tell us something? What if every frozen lake, every glacier, every snowflake is a letter in a message we've been too blind to read? The day the ice refused to melt wasn't an ending, it was a beginning, and the next chapter is approaching faster than we think.